welcome back to Let's Talk About It. We are the show that informs so you can transform.
Oh, I love Rashida, did you take note of that?
You know,
whatever. Whatever.
She was on though. She was on.
Whatever.
I'm pausing so I can train you.
You know what it is?
Okay.
She needed to be on our side for a minute so she can remember.
Okay.
Right. Well, I'm so excited because we have an expert in the house, ladies.
Yes.
Finally, it's not just us putting the pieces together. We have an expert. All right.
In the house.
She is called media's #1 big sister, and she is self-love expert TonyaTko. Please welcome her to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. You all are so kind. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You know what? Just first off, when I think about a big sister, this is my big sister, by the way.
I am.
And I think about, taking her earrings and taking her clothes when she's not looking and things like that. But I also think, when I think about a big sister, I also think about someone who's gone before me and kind of laid the groundwork and kind of made things a little easier for me. Like, she kind of went to the school of hard knocks and made it easier for me. So how does that relate to what you do? Please tell us.
That is absolutely exactly what I do.
Okay.
When my mother passed away when I was a teenager, I had to, actually, no, that's okay. That's what got me to where I am right now.
Okay.
When she passed away, I had to come into womanhood on my own. And so, like you said, the school of hard knocks, and oh goodness, they knocked me hard. And so what I do now is I reach back and I help people avoid some of the pitfalls. We still have to go through what it is that we have to go through, but some of the things that we don't have to go through, like not knowing, you'd be surprised how many people don't have big sisters, how many people mothers are not there for them, or whose mothers are still going through some of the pitfalls themselves.
Right.
And then that's where I come in to help them bridge the gap.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, how did you find yourself on this journey?
It's interesting that you asked that. I was in 2007. I had a really intensive surgery, and I had a near-death experience after the surgery. And while I was recovering from that, I discovered YouTube, and in helping other people, I was able to find healing for myself.
YouTube is a wonderful platform,
Isn't it?
Oh my gosh, any and everything is on there.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful.
Okay, so you said you discovered YouTube and you just decided to I'm going to make videos, I'm going to help. How does that inspiration just hit you?
Well, the story is a little more in depth. I don't know how in depth you want me to go, but when I had the near-death experience, I wasn't the same person coming out of it as I was going in. You know how you talked about Joan Rivers and how she left the message saying that she had a good life. I had a really amazing life, traveled to more than 26 countries. I speak 2.5 languages.
And a half.
Pig
Latin?
Ebonics?
No, I speak English, hablo español también, y skoshi nihongo wakarimasu.
That's right. A little bit more.
So that's English, Spanish, and a little bit of Japanese.
Oh,
so we know. So I wasn't the same person coming out that I was going in, and when I came out of it, I realized that there's a lot more to life than we actually think that there is, and what we're doing here on Earth may be a little bit different than we actually think, and we don't really rise to our full power because we get distracted by so many different things. Just being addicted to drama and addicted to suffering, and really not knowing how full and broad and amazing and abundant we really are. And so when I came out of it, this is so embarrassing, but when I was trying to recover from my surgery, I was like sedentary, just laying around watching. This was around the time, this was in 2007, when TV shows started putting their videos online. And so I was watching series upon series of all of these shows, and somehow I came across YouTube. And YouTube had started in 2006, and so this was 2007, and there was someone who asked us to do a video response. So my very first video was just a little video response, and in doing that video, I was forced to sit up, and I was forced to, comb my hair and get myself together for the camera. And so I started doing a lot of different types of videos, credit repair videos, funny videos. And when I touched upon the self-love, when I touched upon, you know, sometimes you just, like, there's such an amazing space for vloggers nowadays. When you say YouTube is great, YouTube was an amazing space for vloggers to come out and give their opinion and give their standpoint. And so when I came out and I think one day maybe I was just venting, because, you know, like, girlfriends call you or someone calls you and you realize how tremendous and how deep the need is for self-love.
Yes.
And I believe I just made a video, and when I touched upon self-love, my channel really started to just really explode. And so now I'm more than 39 million video views worldwide, hundreds of thousands of subscribers across the world. And so and so this has been my niche, because me personally, you know, and I think anybody who says that they haven't struggled with any type of esteem issue is not being forthright.
Oh,
No.
No way.
Absolutely.
We all have struggled with
That's
esteem
right.
issues, especially women, especially young girls,
Yes.
where a lot of what it is that makes us beautiful and wonderful is suppressed and
Yes.
belittled, and you know,
Right.
and
Right.
the more aggressive and rougher and more masculine things are exalted. So, you know, young ladies, especially, oh my goodness. Especially when it comes to body image and self-worth.
Yes.
And then with this tremendous dysfunction we have, this sexual dysfunction that we have, where sex is used as a weapon against women instead of the beautiful bonding process and the beautiful connection that sex really is. So, you know, so there's a lot. I mean, I'm sure in any one of our stories we can think back to a time where, you know, we trusted a young man with our heart or our body, and we learned very early on that it can be a war, a battleground out
that
there.
part right there.
It can be a war.
Yeah.
It can be heartbreaking. And I was having this conversation with someone not too long ago that just when you are in certain relationships, just coming up, you know, you get to be a woman of a certain age, and of course, it is the assumption that you have been through something, and you have been through something with some guys.
Right.
You know, okay, it's a given. So you get to a certain point where you're so tired of getting your heart broken. You're just so tired of being disappointed. You know, you had enough.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so I think with a lot of women that makes them personally say, you know what, forget it.
Give up on
They
love.
give up on it, or they settle for less.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they take on the persona like, you know what, I'm just going to get mine. I'm just going to, you
Right,
know, here's
right.
all this. I'm gonna. It's all about me. But I still know that deep inside that's not what they want, and they're not happy. So what would you say to women like that? Well, first of all, do you agree? And
Well,
what would you say to that?
Well, I partially agree. I know that does exist. But when we're in relationship, you're really only in relationship with yourself. Your partner is mirroring something back to you about you. So when you get into a relationship, and I suggest that, and I definitely, you know, listen, oh goodness. It's so easy to be hard. You know, for a woman, it's so
Yes.
easy to put on that
Right.
outer shell and be tough and just and push love away.
Right.
That's the easy part. But staying vulnerable, staying open, allowing yourself to really reflect and see, what is this person mirroring back to me? What is this? What does this say about my past? What does this say about what it is that I may have come into this life to work on? You know, you'd be surprised, but the women that we are today, the grown women, the men that we are, the people that we are as adults, much of our opinions about life, who it is that we are, what it is that we're doing here, was formed by the time that we were 8 years old. So a lot of our opinions and interpretations were formed with a child's mind. And so we grow, and these themes start to show up really early on in our lives, and each person has a different theme. And you know, everybody is like a beautiful bouquet of just story and history. And so like your life lessons will be different than mine, and yours and yours and yours will be different than mine. And so what one thing means to one person is definitely going to be different than what it means to another. You know, for one person, when they get into an abusive relationship, the lesson there is, you know, is to broaden yourself into love, and broaden yourself into self-love and exalting yourself to a certain level. And for another person, the same type of abusive relationship may be learning that you are okay and that you are safe and that you put yourself in safe situations, or any number of examples that we can come up with. But no two lessons are going to be the same. No two situations mean the exact same thing to each person. So when a woman closes, to answer your question, when a woman closes herself up and she's like, I'm just not going to be bothered, you know, she actually turns away. She turns away from an amazing amount of lessons and growth and healing that she would have if she looked right into the eye of the storm and said, you know what? Let me find the pattern. This is what I suggest to all of the men and women out there, because, you know, it's not just us women. And unfortunately, men have a tremendous burden of really not being given the benefit of the doubt. You know, men are just grown boys. And, you know, we look to men as if men are supposed to have the answers, and men are supposed to, you know, be or hold this position of really knowing it all, not ever expressing any weakness, not expressing that he doesn't know something, never expressing that he can't handle something. And so, you know, so we look and we turn to them, and they're really put in an unfair position as well. So what I would suggest for each person, male and female, is that you look through your past relationships and you find the pattern. You find the pattern. You do like a little tic-tac-toe board. I have a video where I help people find the pattern in their past relationship. And you just write down what it is, why did you all break up, what were the problems that you had with this person, and then you go through all of your past major relationships, and when you start to see certain words, why did we break up? Oh, this person, you know, he cheated on me, or this person did this, or this person did that. And when you start seeing similarities, it can't just be coincidence, because the men that you attract are going to be different than or the people, I don't know, you know, the people you attract.
You was right. The men. Let's be clear.
Let's straight that out, right?
So the men that you attract are going to be different than the men that I attract, and that goes for everyone around the table. So just start looking through your past, and also let's not forget our girlfriends too, our platonic relationships, and start looking for some of the patterns in there. And when you see certain patterns rise up out of the ether, and you start take note of that and see what is it that I may need to work on in this particular life.
Right.
You're the common denominator.
That's true.
Exactly. And that's what I was going to say too, because it's like it's tough for people to look at themselves, because people kind of in relationships like that, sometimes you're always looking for the other person to make you happy. Oh, he's not doing this, he's not doing that, but what are you doing and not doing, you know, in that. So that is very profound. And looking, I think we're at the point in this time in history that we're realizing it comes from within. And we get to that point where we're spinning our wheels. We done dated everybody. We done, you know, broke up with everybody. We done spent the time crying and girl, he did this and he did that. And now it's like, now you're faced with, look in the mirror.
Yeah,
it started with you. It starts with you. You created this, and you have to find out what is it inside of you that's attracting you to these type of people, these type of relationships, so that you can heal and get the love that you really deserve.
Absolutely.
I love what you put on your Facebook page. I did some little checking here. You wrote this passage, and I really love it, and I hope that you just say a little bit more about it. Anyone treated like an option is in the right spot, not because of what the other person is doing to you, but because of what you feel you deserve and are allowing to be done to yourself. We can't control other people, and everyone is not going to be able to make us a priority. The only person we can control is ourselves, and whether or not the option role is an option.
Oh, wow. Yes,
That's
absolutely.
good.
Yeah.
That was good. I wrote that? No.
like, that's good.
Well, you know, sometimes messages flow through me.
Yeah,
that's right, girl.
Yes,
That's right.
I can relate to that.
And I remember when I
Yes.
wrote that in response to an associate of mine who was like, nobody deserves to be an option. And I'm like, well, you know, this is what we allow. You know, and one thing that I would say, and I'll elaborate on that, one thing that I'll say is that I have found in counseling people that when we get into these dysfunctional situations in our relationship, there's actually something about that feels familiar. You know, it's familiar territory, whether it's not, you know, because, you know, I do the live show every Wednesday where people find themselves on the love seat. And so when they come in, they think that the issue is, oh, I'm being treated as an option. Oh, this person is doing this. But the real issue is the familiarity that they felt in longing for a person in the same way that they longed for their mother to come home from her drunken binges, or the same way that they longed for their father who was in Florida with a new family and forgot all about the family that he started. So when we start talking about whether or not we're an option or whether or not we're being abused or mishandled or whatever, I think that every relationship is a reflection. Every relationship is exactly where you because there's something that you need to turn your attention to. There's some lesson, there's some programming, there's something that's been implanted, something that feels familiar. So when I wrote that, I was specifically talking about how it's really not anyone else. It's really you.
Yes.
It's what you're allowing, what feel an option obviously feels familiar in some sort of way. You know, you looked at the way your mother was treated, and you know, and I would suggest anyone who's in an unhealthy relationship to really look at yourself and get down to the root of it and when that first began. What I tell people, and we tell everyone to get their pens and papers, write this down. When you think about, I need you to think about the most abundant feeling that you felt in that relationship, whether it was sadness or loneliness or anger, you know, and then just follow it backwards and think to yourself, when was the very first time that I felt this emotion? And when you follow that emotion back to its core, you're going to see that there's been a theme that has been created going forward from there. You know, so I don't know if anyone wants to disclose anything personal on
well,
the
you know,
show.
we're going to take a quick music break.
Saved by the bell.
And we'll get a little more into it when we get back from the break. You're listening to the Let's Talk About It radio show, the show where we inform so you can
Transform
on ubnradio.com. We'll be back with media's #1 big sister, TonyaTko. Hold tight. Grab those pen and pencils if you haven't already.
All right, this is at the
DJ Wiz.
request of the host.
All right. What I request?
I'm about to find out right now.
Welcome back. You're tuned in to the Let's Talk About It radio show, the show where we inform so you can
Transform
on ubnradio.com. DJ G Wiz wasn't in that, but I'm not going to say much.
Hey,
I'm calling you out.
this is the aftermath of accommodating your request. I get a pass.
And I so appreciate it.
And I love you too, boo.
Thank you.
I love that song.
Yeah, that
Oh,
song.
my goodness.
Brings back
Took me
memories.
back.
I think we like a lot of the same songs though, because everyone you request, I'm like, yeah.
She texted me and she was like, hey sis, you know what? I gotta hear some of that guy. And I was like, you got it.
Love, love,
Yeah,
love.
very good.
You thought I forgot, huh?
You know, we've been off a few weeks.
That's how I roll.
I appreciate it. Well, we're back, and we have Miss TonyaTko in the building with us.
Thank you.
So before we went to our break, you were trying to get in our business. Go ahead.
It got a little hot all of a sudden.
She did offer though. She
did.
asked.
Yes.
I'll be in the hot seat for a minute because I ain't scared, and I told you
You
I
go,
ain't
girl.
It's
scared.
the love scene.
You know, I have been working on myself.
Hot seat.
I like that.
It's the love seat. Okay.
Yes.
I can honestly say I have been working on myself since 1997.
Okay.
I noticed some of those issues that that I needed to take care of, and one of the things that I came up with was that I have had. I'm working on it still. It's just a
Work in
progress. Thank you. Abandonment issues.
Okay.
And so that is because when I was a baby, young, my parents were on the road singing.
Okay.
And they were gone a lot. So our grandmother took care of us a lot. And so, but they were always gone. I'm like, during my formative years, like my mom wasn't there when she was bringing home bacon. They were pretty successful,
Right.
but they were just always gone. So I realized as I was growing older and dating and things like that, I always attracted a guy that was never there for me.
Right, exactly.
He was never there for me. And it wasn't because I wasn't doing my part, I didn't think, you know, but he just wasn't there for me. And it was relationship after relationship. I mean, I'm like, why am I home on a Saturday night by myself? I have a man, supposedly. Why am I home Friday? What? How come I can't do this? How come I can't, you know, I'm supposed to be in a relationship, but I feel like I'm the only one in the relationship.
Right.
I realized that about myself. And so I said, okay, you know what? We got to fix this. This ain't cute at all.
Right.
There's nothing good about this. It's just having a title of a girlfriend
Yes.
and
Right.
not being a girlfriend. So it hurt. It hurt to realize it. It hurt to look at that in myself. It hurt to look at that in the guys that I was attracting, because it was one guy after another. One guy after another.
Right.
And that junk hurt, you know? And I was like, okay, this has got to stop. But it's when I stopped and saw it for what it was and started working on me and said, you know what, no more of that. And when I saw the next pattern of the next guy, I said, no, you're not, you know.
You were empowered then.
And I was
Right.
like, we're not getting together. We're not hooking up because you're doing that. No. I said no. And then I started thinking about me and my needs and loving myself and who I am. And then I attracted a guy that was more fitting to what God made me to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Give her, oh, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That takes a lot of courage. You know,
Well, I have a question though at first, not to cut you off, but I thought you was going to tell your story and then she was going to chime in, but you did all of it too by yourself.
She
You
already
go,
did it,
girl.
girl.
You get a high
She done
five
went
for
from
me.
She
A to
said,
Z.
yeah.
Go on, girl.
She's been working on herself since
To
97.
97.
So.
Well, and the reality
I made a
is,
little progress.
well, and the reality is, these things take time,
They
and
do.
we
They
need to
do.
give
Yeah.
ourselves the
Yes.
freedom of taking that time.
Well,
you
I think
know?
the first thing is just even being able to recognize it. You know what I mean? And then figuring it out.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's that time alone, and I'll just be
Oh,
honest, it's that
yes.
time alone and dealing with myself and crying and calling out to God and not
Lord.
being happy and just dealing with people and situations and just being on my knees like, Lord, this ain't me. What's going on? You know,
Girl,
that
give me.
whole
I'm
thing.
a high five you from over
Okay.
here.
you know, there
Been
are
there.
some exercises that you can do to actually help and facilitate the process. For example, if you can recalibrate and reattune yourself, because you know, as human beings, we're full of electricity and electrical current, and we're magnets in our minds. They send out signals that attract these things to us. Like you said, you always attracted these men that were not there for you. So you can go back in and recalibrate. You can do an exercise that I love to do during my seminars. If you go into a meditative state, so this is for everyone out there who may be suffering from an issue where you see that there's a pattern. And of course, like we said, a lot of these patterns start from when we were young. And so if you find your pattern and you're not really sure what to do about it, and this is something that you can also do as well, because you do have help. So if you go into a meditative state, and for anyone who doesn't know how to meditate, meditating is just really putting your attention on something. You know, even if you were to just look at your hand and look at all of the ridges of your hand, or grains of sand, or staring at the wall, or whatever, just putting your attention to something and just quieting your mind. Go into a meditative state. You can imagine a really beautiful place and go into this place, and when you see you can call upon your younger self and bring your younger self out there and have your younger self sit on your lap or sit next to you and, you know, hug and give your younger self some love, and tell your younger self that it's okay, that it's not your fault, that this was not something that you did, and that you did the best that you could. Because you know what, when we build up these defenses, and when we attract these things to us, you know, we're doing the very best that we can with what it is that we've been given. You know, and a lot of this is being processed with children's minds, you know, and a lot of it is something that needs our attention. So go to your younger self, hug your younger self, tell your younger self it's okay, forgive your parents. You can even call upon their younger selves to meet you there. And there's something that happens in your mind. The electrical current begins to change, and you can recalibrate, reprogram and reattune your vibration just with this meditation alone. It's a really powerful meditation. And so when you see your younger self, say the things to yourself that you wish that an adult had said to you. You know, with the knowledge that you have now, go back to your younger self and impart. And you know what? One thing that's really important, explain to your younger self that you're all right.
That's right.
That you made it. You know, that you're okay. And that that those things helped get to where you are now, and that your younger self shouldn't beat themselves up because you turned out all right. You know, and tell your younger self how beautiful and how amazing your life is now, and tell your younger self to let that go, that you're okay now, that you're safe, that you will be taken care of, that people will be there for you. And start to, the things that you've been programmed to believe, start to implant a different programming. And when you leave that meditation, because you can, you know, time goes on a vertical plane. And so you can jump to different parts of your life during your timeline by just jumping down this vertical plane. And when you come out of this meditation, you will feel something different inside of you. You will feel the information that was implanted there in you as a child, and you will feel as if you had grown up with that information implanted in. You will come out of that a different person. You're looking at me so intently.
Because I'm trying to figure out like what age I'm gonna go back to.
Do I go back to utero?
I'm like, what age is that?
Do I go back into the womb?
And even though you're joking, that's a really great point, because you can do a meditation in utero, and you can do a meditation to the point before your soul jumped into your body, before you connected with your body coming into this earth, and the things that you told your physical being to prepare for this earth's existence. And you can ask yourself, what is it that you're coming into this life to learn? Ask yourself in utero, ask yourself as you're coming out of the vaginal canal, and you can find if you know what, only a portion of our spirit is in our bodies right now. And you know, and our higher selves is always around us. So go back to in utero. See the state of mind that your mother was in when she was carrying you, and the hormones that affected you when you were inside the stomach, the things that you witnessed from your higher self between a dynamic between your mother and your father, and what things were like when you first came out into the world, and what it was like connecting with your body and coming in full abundance and glory, and then the things that you were taught, the minimizing things that you were taught, and the things that you learned. Because you know what, it's like we don't need someone to tell us, you know, this is wrong, this is that. You don't need anyone to tell you you are poor. You know, you look around and you see the way you're living your life compared to where your friends are living, or the way the people on TV are living, and you start to realize, I remember when I was young, I didn't have a concept of what England was. I didn't know it was a different country. But when I saw those little kids on the TV with their little velvet pants and their little high white socks, and they were talking so proper and they were living so, I thought that that's the way rich people spoke, and I thought that white people were rich, and that once they become rich, they had those little accents. Nobody had
How cute.
And nobody had to tell me, you know, that being black was, I mean, you see those doll things, the little shows that they do with the dolls. So nobody has to say being black is bad. You look on TV and you see the proper people speaking, and they're so clean and everything is clean around them. And then you look at Good Times and they're struggling to eat rice and beans, and you know, and then you look at yourself and you're like, what's the similarity? So when you
we talk about that on the show.
So when you grow up in your families, you know, nobody has to tell you women are second class, or men are aggressive, or men don't take care of women, or no one has to tell you that. You just look around and you start forming your opinions on your own.
That's true. Very much so.
Geez, I can't imagine sitting in meditation. Look here, egg.
You are somebody.
You're gonna be.
You're gonna be somebody.
And you know what? You absolutely can do that. You absolutely can go back and say, what is it about this egg that I'm going to choose, this sperm that I'm going to choose to help me come in with these fabulous good looks, or whatever, or full lips, or kinkier hair. What is it about these characteristics that I'm going to choose for this life's existence? So yeah, go back to the egg and see why you chose that particular egg.
Can you change something?
What came first? She'd already
Is it set in stone? Maybe you want to add height. Maybe you want to take height away. I mean, we're already here. Can we
set in stone?
I'm just asking.
You're gonna have a little double Rashida walking around somewhere.
Hey, I will be working 24 hours getting it in.
You going? I'm gonna take a break.
You're the opposite of me. One of me would be sleep, another one would be working.
Well, yeah.
We trade off.
Yeah, we can do that.
Well, one thing I do like about the meditation that you were talking about is that if anything, you can figure out what you're here for, and it can remind you what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
That's what I got from that.
Absolutely.
No, it sounds powerful.
It does really
It
sound
really
powerful.
does. Now, is it only something that you can do with self? Like, could you do it with your kids?
You know what? That's an interesting question. And from what I've gathered in my own research, is that as parents, we made an agreement to take care and to usher the lives of our children when they come into this world. So and please understand that your children they're not children. They are very wise old souls. They come into this earth and they choose you as parents, and they choose the circumstances that they've come into this life with. So, you can do some work, and you'd be surprised. Children can meditate as well. And children's imaginations are so strong and so powerful that you can go into a meditative state with your child, and you can connect with your child's spirit. You can connect with your child's being in this meditative state, and you can work on some things that you feel that you may need to work on with your child. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Do you have some ideas of what you're going to do? Do you have some ideas of what you're going to do with your child?
Well, as a parent, you're always looking back at how you could have did things differently. And I think for me, I have 2 kids, and I'm much more mature with the second one and had learning experience because of the first one. And there were some things I would have done differently with the first one had I had the experience and the age and the wisdom and the life experience. So that's a kind of a place where I am right now, where that's a burden on my heart in terms of I want to make sure I give her as much of me as I can to maybe fill some places that I may not have been able to, being a young mother.
Well,
so
you know what? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I think forgiveness is essential in healing. And I think that you owe it to yourself to go back to the woman that you were when you had your first child and forgive yourself. And there's nothing wrong with going to your child and talking to your child and asking your child to forgive you for some of those things as well, and really have a really deep, honest conversation with your child. You'd be surprised how many children never get apologized to by their parents.
Wow. No, I've done that. I've done that with her. I've talk to her because I'm open, and she had a conversation with my husband this weekend, and I told her that I really was proud of her, for just expressing her feelings and not to hold in any emotions. And I'm like, and that's me included. If you ever feel, I'm like, always with respect, but if you ever feel that there's something that I have done or anyone has done, just to give her a voice to be empowered to, share her feelings or thoughts or whatever she may not have liked. So I've done that part. It's just probably, like you said, the part with myself.
Yes, absolutely.
Letting myself off the hook for it.
Absolutely. And I'll give a tip out there to everyone. If you want to get someone to talk, because sometimes just adding the invitation is not enough. If you want to get someone to talk, set up regularly scheduled intervals in which talking is mandatory, where talking is going to happen regardless. And then set the floor and tell them to tell you 3 things. Just say, please tell me 3 things that you wish could have been done differently. Because if you say, is there anything you wish could have been done differently? They'll be like, no, nothing, don't worry about it.
It's too big of a question.
Right, but tell you 3 things. And you'll see that they'll come up with 3 things. They'll find the 3 things because you've set the challenge for them. And just like with yourself, like instead of like, especially with finances and stuff, if you don't ever say I can't afford it, say how can I afford it? So you set the stage to have the question answered. So a way to get someone to speak to you is just set the stage for them to rise to a certain number of questions that you'd love for them to ask you, and you'll see they'll rise to it. They rise to it every time.
I like that. Well, we're going to take a quick music break, and when we come back, Deetra's going to close out the show with her positive affirmation. You're tuned into the Let's Talk About It radio show, the show where we inform so you can transform on ubnradio.com. DJ G Wiz.